Let's read chapter 12, beginning at verse 18. You have not come to a mountain that can be touched and that is burning with fire, to darkness, gloom, and storm, to a trumpet blast, or to such a voice speaking words that those who heard it begged that no further word be spoken to them, because they could not bear what was commanded. If even an animal touches a mountain, it must be stoned to death. The sight was so terrifying that Moses said, I'm trembling with fear. But you come to Mount Zion, to the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem. You've come to thousands upon thousands of angels in joyful assembly, to the church of the firstborn, whose names are written in heaven. You've come to God, the judge of all, to the spirits of the righteous made perfect, to Jesus, the mediator of a new covenant, and to the sprinkled blood that speaks a better word than the blood of Abel. See to it that you do not refuse him who speaks. If they did not escape when they refused him who warned them on earth, how much less will we, if we turn away from him who warns us from heaven? At that time his voice shook the earth, but now he's promised once more will shake not only the earth, but also the heavens. The words once more indicate the removing of what can be shaken, that is, created things, so that what cannot be shaken may remain. Therefore, since receiving a kingdom that cannot be shaken, let us be thankful, and so worship God acceptably with reverence and awe, for our God is a consuming fire. Powerful words, powerful images, and we're going to explore them. But first we're going to do a little bit of rewinding and look at some of the images and pictures that we looked at in this series of the book of Hebrews. And the first we've got is a clock of the now. Simon Hester talks to us from Hebrews chapter 3 and verse 14. It says, today if you hear his voice, don't harden your hearts as you did in rebellion. And there's this picture right early on in Hebrews, this kind of idea that what we're drawing towards is something that's been built up in the Old Testament. It's why we have the Old Testament, the Old Promise, and the New Testament. You've got to combine them together to fully understand what God is doing. And the writer of Hebrews gives us this big picture feel. And so he's saying we're into a different place, particularly in tonight's thing. We're looking beyond the wilderness. We're looking to where God has taken us to this new covenant, this new promise. But we look back and we learn the lessons from the Old Testament. We learn the lessons from the wilderness. And one of those lessons is, don't be rebellious like the children of Israel were. If you hear God's voice today, if you heard God's voice during that worship, don't be hard-hearted towards him. Be soft-hearted. Be open to him. Don't be rebellious. We don't know how much time we've got left, so let's respond now, today, if you hear his voice. Next picture was from chapter 4, the command center that Rachel talked about. Therefore, since we have a great high priest who is ascended into heaven, Jesus, the Son of God, let us hold firmly to the faith we profess. And this is a picture of Jesus ascending into heaven. And often you have that picture of when Jesus ascends on the cloud, that everything's done and everything's complete. And what happens is Jesus says, yeah, I've done my bit, I've done my work. The next big gig is coming again, descending. So what he does is he ascends into the green room of heaven. That's where the celebrities hang out backstage. So he's gone there. He's gone to chill out a little bit until the curtain call comes and says, right, time to give you a second coming. He's just relaxing there. That's not at all the picture that we get from Hebrews and from the New Testament. It's Jesus. It's more like this picture, the command center. You know those films where something happens in the White House and we need to really sort it out. So all the chiefs, all the wise people, all the specialists gather in this bunker room below the White House to direct the action. It's more that picture we get of Jesus ascending, going through the heavenlies. That's where he is, with the Father, through the Spirit, directing the action of his church on earth. So when we pray, that's where we're heard, not in this really passive place. We're heard in the command center. Next up, a prisoner. I've actually fast-forwarded a little bit from when I was speaking, but I used this image a few weeks back. From chapter 12 and verse 1, therefore, since we're surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let's throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. And what the writer of Hebrews wants to convince us of is that we are free in Jesus. This sacrifice has won for us righteousness. Through Jesus, we are holy, and so we're absolutely free from all guilt and all sin and all fear. But sometimes we still let sin entangle us. And it's like a prisoner who's been in prison for decades. being released, and because he's so used to the prison system, so used to being behind bars and caged in, that even though he's set free, he struggles to see the freedom that he now has. And so we're encouraged to move beyond that, to say, look, let's not go back to our life of sin. Let's not entangle us. We're free from it. Let's walk free from that. And access all areas, VIP access. Chapter 10 and verse 20, by a new and living way open for us through the curtain that is his body. We have access to God. Beautiful access. Nothing is held back from us. We can walk boldly into the throne room of God. Yeah, there's an amazing picture which I didn't get hold of, but I read about it in a book, and it's a picture of JFK, who was president of the United States back in the early 1960s. And you look at this picture, and you've got to notice it, but JFK is in the Oval Office, the central office of the White House, and he's at that famous desk, and he's busy signing documents, and saying, but if you look closely at this picture, you can see his son, I think it's John F. Kennedy Jr., is poking his head out below the table, and he's just playing with a little tractor. It's this amazing picture of intimate connection with the most powerful person on the planet, and he's right there in the throne room, if you like, but he's got that access, and he's just there being a child of his dad. We've got that kind of access to God. It's amazing. But here we have two more pictures tonight in chapter 12, and it's for two mountains. And I love this, and I just want you to close your eyes as I read this. So this is going back. We've got these two mountains. We've got Sinai and we've got Zion. Very deliberately, the writer of Hebrews is bringing those together to talk about the journey that we've gone on, to this summer experience, summing up what he's talking about in the book of Hebrews. But he's referring back to chapter 19 of Exodus. And so in your minds, I want you to imagine that you're there and you're part of the children of Israel who've been set free from Egypt, set free from all those old gods that you worshipped in Egypt. You're worshipping the God of your forefathers now, and he's leading you through the wilderness. Pillar of cloud by day, pillar of fire by night. And you're led to this mountain and you're on your way to the promised land. But God wants to set in stone, literally set in stone, what it means to follow him, and meets with his people in a powerful way. So if you can, just imagine that you're there at the foot of a mountain, Mount Sinai. And this is your experience. This is what happens. On the morning of the third day, there was thunder and lightning with a thick cloud over the mountain and a very loud trumpet blast. Everyone in the camp trembled. Then Moses led the people out of the camp to meet with God, and they stood at the foot of the mountain. Mount Sinai was covered with smoke because the Lord descended on it in fire. The smoke billowed up from it like smoke from a furnace, and the whole mountain trembled violently. As the sound of a trumpet grew louder and louder, Moses spoke, and the voice of God answered him. The Lord descended to the top of Mount Sinai and called Moses to the top of the mountain. So Moses went up, and the Lord said to him, "Go down and warn the people, so they do not force their way through to see the Lord, and many of them perish. Even the priests who approach the Lord must consecrate themselves, make themselves pure, or the Lord will break out against them." Imagine being there. What does it say? How is this God revealing himself to the children of Israel? It's a powerful image, isn't it? Very powerful. And he's saying, look, I've just actually dealt with all those Egyptian gods. I am the one God above all. I am powerful. I am sovereign. It is right to obey me, and it's a right to revere me. But it's very powerful, isn't it? And I feel if I was there, I'd be trembling like the rest of them. And part of me thinks, oh, why did God reveal himself in that way? That's a bit scary, isn't it? This is a picture, when it conjures up in your mind, it seems more like hell than heaven, doesn't it? Cloud and fire and smoke. Why does God reveal himself in that way? But it's so powerful. Isaiah, in Isaiah 64, when the children of Israel are a bit apathetic towards God and need shaking up, he says, you know what? I want that experience. And sometimes I'm with Isaiah because I'm so complacent. I'm so familiar with this amazing God who is sovereign of everything, who can juggle black holes, should he choose to juggle black holes. He's so amazingly powerful. Sometimes I feel a little bit familiar. Sometimes I want to be startled by the amazing reality of who God is. Isaiah says this is what we need. We need a wake-up call. It says, Isaiah chapter 64, "Oh, that you would rend the heavens and come down, that the mountains would tremble before you, as when fire sets twigs ablaze and causes water to boil. Come down to make your name known to your enemies and cause the nations to quake before you." Wow. But there's a different mountain as well, and it's quite cleverly done. There's Mount Sinai, and it sounds very similar to Mount Zion or Sion, as it was referred to. And Zion was the mountain that David built his palace and his temple on when he captured Jerusalem. Built his palace and built a temple there. So it's about the presence of God there. And it's a very different image. It's one of fear and, if you like, limited access to God. Only Moses gets to go up the mountain. But there's this picture of now that's not what we move beyond that. We move beyond that old promise into this new promise. And this is where it's brought us, verse 22 of chapter 12. "But you've come to Mount Zion, to the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem. You come to thousands upon thousands of angels in joyful assembly, to the church of the firstborn, whose names are written in heaven. You've come to God, the judge of all, to the spirits of the righteous made perfect, to Jesus, the mediator of a new covenant, and to the sprinkled blood that speaks a better word than the blood of Abel." So this old mountain, Sinai, and it's caught up with Moses and the law and the old covenant. What we've been looking at constantly through the book of Hebrews is Jesus is greater than that. We've moved beyond it into this new covenant. And the writer of Hebrews is trying to get us to see just in what an amazing space we are. So he describes this mountain that we're at, Mount Zion, where the temple is at the center, the presence of God is at the center, saying, look at what you've come to. You come to this amazing place where you've been made pure because of what Jesus has done on the cross. So you can walk right into the presence of God. What an amazing place it is. You are free. And what's it like? It's like, wow, the angels are constantly singing praises and they're full of joy. There's a joyful assembly. It's like a constant festival. This is the party city. It's not to be afraid of. It's not you don't have limited access to God. You've got absolute access to God now. And we're rejoicing in that. It's a beautiful place to live. Now we've got to be careful. We can't think that old covenant, that old mountain was about exclusive holiness. Only a few get up the mountain. Only a few are pure. And that's one of the messages right away through Hebrews, that actually all that obedience to the law and the sacrifice was right to revere God, but it didn't work in terms of making people holy and pure so they could have full-on access to God. Only the sacrifice that Jesus did could do that. But because we think maybe this new man is about inclusive grace, inclusive holiness, that it doesn't matter how we enter this place. We don't need to change. Everyone gets in. That's not what the writer of Hebrews is saying either. It's saying, actually, God's status hasn't changed. His holiness hasn't changed. His majesty hasn't changed. It's still awesome to be in his presence. Just recognize that this holiness has been won for you. Your life is caught up in Christ. Christ is your holiness. Christ is your righteousness. You're caught up with him. That's how you enter. And this is beyond, if you like, the all access to all areas badge. It's not like Jesus is the owner of this really exclusive nightclub. And because we know Jesus, we can rock up in the Rolls Royce and step out, and all the security guards are like, oh yeah, and they're with Jesus. They get in, no price. And we march into the VIP room of the nightclub. It's way better than that. It's more like we're citizens of this eternal, unshakable kingdom that Hebrews talks about. We live in the New Jerusalem, Mount Zion. This is our new identity. And we've got to be caught up in that and say, wow, it's like we've got this amazing status that God always meant for us to have. But we turned our back on him. We rebelled. But now we've been invited to be citizens of heaven once again. What does that mean for us? Well, it means a lot of partying, obviously. That's what the book of Hebrews has to say. But it means living life of reverence and wonder. And wonder, if you think about it, is a form of gratitude, isn't it? It's a form of gratitude. You know what you want to see on someone's face when you give them a present? You want them to say thank you. That's always nice if someone says thank you. But you want to see them unwrap that present and go, it's like a wide-eyed wonder. Wow, can't believe it. You got me the absolute perfect thing. Wonder is a form of thankfulness, isn't it? And excitement is a form of thankfulness. And we're to be like that as citizens of heaven, living in this new city, wandering around and thinking, it's amazing. I love getting lost in new places. I love getting lost in new cities. I love it. I went to Berlin for a wedding last summer. I could only be there for 24 hours. I was so disappointed because I walked a little bit through the city and I was looking at it thinking, this is an amazing city. If only I had time to explore it. I want to go to Checkpoint Charlie. I want to see the Berlin Wall. I want to see the Brandenburg Gate, whatever it is. I want to see all the stuff. It's so exciting. And I looked at the map and said, oh, all these things that I want to see, but I can't. This is the kind of city we're living in with God. It's an exciting place to be. And there's new wonders. It's like walking around London. There's some new skyscraper going up here, there, and everywhere, isn't there? You know, it's always changing London. You walk around the corner and say, oh, I didn't realize that was in London before. That's amazing. Go down to King's Cross and you can dance in the fountains at Granary Square. They're beautiful. All these different things that just unfold as you're walking around the city. That's what it's like to be a citizen of heaven. We live lives of gratitude. We live lives of wonder and reverence. We live in this kingdom, and it's like, yeah, we got this status, but let's not forget that God is still holy and God is still awesome and majestic, and we live our lives in the light of that. So it's a bit like you've been invited to live at Buckingham Palace with the Queen, and you're loving it. You know, you've got a massive room to yourself. Maybe you've got your own garb with a big fuzzy hat outside your room, that kind of thing. It's really exciting. And after a couple of weeks, you're really respectful towards the fact that you're living in Buckingham Palace, and you're really respectful to the Queen. And just because you're living there, it hasn't stopped the Queen being the Queen, right? It hasn't stopped the fact that she's still sovereign over the UK. But you get a little bit familiar with the place. So after a few weeks, you start leaving the lid up on the golden toilets. And you park the Bentley on the lawn. And, you start feeding the corgis a bad diet at McDonald's, so they start leaving little presents all over the throne room. You kind of take the mickey a little bit of living in the Buckingham Palace. And it's like the Queen corners you after a few weeks and says, you're not really being respectful of the place that I brought you to or my status and who I still am. So she whistles for Prince Philip, and he turns up with his elephant gun, and he gives you a 10-second head start, and it's time to leave Buckingham Palace. We've been invited to be citizens of heaven, and that's what we are. That's what we are right now. When I wake up in the morning and I've got my right head on, I remember to be grateful. I remember to say, God, thank you for the breath in my lungs. Thank you for this body. Thank you for blood and for bones. Thank you for the electricity in my nervous system. Thank you for this ground beneath my feet. Thank you for the sky above my head. When we live like that, you automatically realize you have a greater appreciation of life. It's life affirming, not life denying. That's how we're to live in his kingdom, lives of wonder and reverence. We've got our passport. We are citizens of heaven, and it's a beautiful place to be. It's great to hear folks who've been to New Wine this morning buzzing about their experience and just loving living together as Christians and listening to God every day, listening to God's being preached every day, worshiping every day, and thinking, yeah, this is a little taste of heaven. We often have like mountaintop experiences, don't we? Like at places like Christian festivals that we can point to. Oh yeah, that time back in Soul Survivor, back in, if you're as old as me, 1998, or back in 2013, or whatever it might have been for you, or that time when you felt the Spirit really shake you back in 2011. You point to as mountaintop moments, but you got to understand you're always living on top of the mountain with God. You're always living on top of the mountain. You just got to open your eyes to see it, and you got to let the Spirit reveal it. Live a life of wonder and reverence. Let's stand. Let's respond.